I have more respect for a man who lets me know where he stands, even if he's wrong.
We always said in Black Panther Party that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary.
New Nubian. Gang Awareness and Exit Strategies, Understanding the Cycle. Presented by Dr. Jonah Sanders. Course Objectives. To provide learners with a comprehensive understanding of legal ethics, professional responsibility, and the standards governing lawyers' conduct to ensure integrity in the legal profession. Course Outline. Module 1, Introduction to Legal Ethics. Module 2, Lawyers' Duties to Clients. Module 3, Duties to the Court and Legal System. Module 4, Professional Responsibility and Practice Management. Module 5, Ethics Violations and Discipline. Module 6, Case Studies and Review Quiz. Course Syllabus. Module topics covered. Time learning objectives. 1. Intro to Legal Ethics, Definition, History, Sources, 20 minutes. Understand the foundation of legal ethics. 2. Duties to Clients, Confidentiality, Conflicts, Communication, 25 minutes. Learn lawyer-client ethical obligations. 3. Duties to Court, Candor, Fairness, Misconduct, 25 minutes. Know ethical duties toward the justice system. 4. Professional Responsibility, Practice Management and Conduct, 25 minutes. Manage ethical practice responsibilities. 5. Violations and Discipline, Ethics Breaches and Sanctions, 15 minutes. Recognize violations and disciplinary measures. 6. Review and quiz scenarios plus test, 10 minutes. Apply ethics concepts through case studies. Module 1. Understanding Gang Recruitment, Survival, Protection, and Identity. Understanding Gang Recruitment, Survival, Protection, and Identity. Course Objectives. By the end of this course, participants will be able to understand why gangs recruit members, identify the core motivations for youth joining gangs, survival, protection, and identity, analyze real-world case studies to connect theory to practice, discuss intervention and prevention strategies, engage in critical thinking about systemic and social contributors to gang involvement. Part 1, Introduction and Warm-Up. Activities. Facilitator Introduction. Icebreaker, what do you associate with the word gang? Brief overview of the module and lesson. Set group expectations. Part 2, Survival and Socioeconomic Pressures. Lightbulb key topics. Poverty and limited opportunities. Lack of access to education/employment. Recruitment in high-risk neighborhoods. Brain teaching content. Gangs offer money, food, shelter, and survival tools in harsh environments. Some youth see gangs as their only economic opportunity. Part 2, Survival and Socioeconomic Pressures. Media. Short video clip, interviews with former gang members discussing survival motives, real or simulated. Speaking head discussion questions. What survival needs might a gang fulfill? Why might a young person believe joining a gang is the only option? Magnifying Glass Tilted Left Part 2, Survival and Socioeconomic Pressures. Part 3, Protection and Community Violence. Light bulb key topics. Unsafe neighborhoods. Exposure to violence and fear. Gangs as a defense system. Brain teaching content. Youth join gangs not to commit violence, but to protect themselves from it. Gangs provide a shield against rival gangs, bullies, and external threats. Part 3, Protection and Community Violence. Toolbox activity. Role-play scenario, you're a teen in a violent neighborhood. What choices do you have? Megaphone discussion. Are gangs always violent? Can protection be a form of empowerment? Part 4, Identity and Belonging. Light bulb key topics. Broken families or absent guardians. Cultural identity and street credibility. Peer pressure and the search for meaning. Brain teaching content. Many youths crave connection, validation, and purpose. Gangs often act like families, offering rituals, rules, and roles. Part 4, Identity and Belonging. Artist palette activity. Write a short journal entry. What makes you feel like you belong? Studio microphone discussion. What happens when traditional support systems are missing? Can gangs fill a spiritual or emotional void? Part 5, Case Studies and Discussion. Open Book Case Study 1, Raymond's Story. A 16-year-old from a rough urban area joins a gang for safety after being jumped multiple times walking home from school. Open Book Case Study 2, Tasha's Choice. A teenage girl joins a gang to support her siblings financially when her single mother is incarcerated. Part 5, Case Studies and Discussion. Speaking Head Open Questions. What were their options? What factors pushed them versus pulled them into gangs? Part 6, Prevention and Intervention Strategies. Light bulb focus areas. Community-based alternatives, sports, mentorship. School intervention programs. Restorative justice and trauma-informed care. Part 6, Prevention and Intervention Strategies. Busts in silhouette guest voice, optional. Recorded interview or quote from a reformed gang member or intervention counselor. Direct hit takeaway. Understanding motivations helps build effective prevention systems. Part 7, Quiz, Reflection and Wrap-Up. White heavy checkmark quiz, multiple choice or Kahoot style. Which of the following is not a typical reason youth join gangs? What might gangs provide in terms of identity? True or false, all gang recruitment is forced or violent. The need to belong, how gangs fulfill the desire for family and identity. Direct hit course objectives. By the end of this course, participants will understand how gangs provide a surrogate family structure. Analyze the emotional and psychological need for belonging and identity. Explore the effects of family breakdown, neglect, and abuse on youth vulnerability. Recognize how gang culture meets deep emotional needs and creates group identity. Identify intervention strategies that offer alternative sources of support. Brain Part 1, Icebreaker and overview. Clapperboard activities. Icebreaker. Think of a time you felt like you didn't belong. How did it affect you? Course goals and structure overview. Brain key terms introduced. Belonging. Surrogate family. Group identity. Validation. Part 2, The Psychology of Belonging. Light bulb topics covered. Human emotional needs, Maslow's hierarchy, love/belonging. The role of peers during adolescence. The pain of exclusion and its behavioral impacts. Brain teaching content. Youth who don't feel seen, heard, or valued seek connection. Rejection and isolation can lead to high-risk behavior as a form of compensation. Part 2, The Psychology of Belonging. Media. Short video on adolescent brain development and the importance of social connection. Activity. Group brainstorm, what makes people feel they belong somewhere? Part 3, When Family Fails, The Risk Factors. Topics covered. Dysfunctional households, abuse, neglect, incarceration. Single-parent stress, homelessness, foster care. Generational trauma. Key concepts. Broken family bonds create emotional vulnerability. Youth may seek outside groups to fulfill roles of protector, provider, nurturer. Part 3, When Family Fails, The Risk Factors. Mini case. Jordan is 14. His mother works 2 jobs and is rarely home. His father is in prison. He starts hanging out with a local crew. Discussion. What emotional gaps is Jordan trying to fill? What alternatives might he need? Part 4, How gangs imitate family and offer identity. Teaching content. Gangs have rules, structure. Initiation rites, bonding. Leaders, father figures. Nicknames, individual identity. Colors/symbols, group identity. They use belonging to build loyalty, prevent leaving, reinforce us versus them mentality. Part 4, How gangs imitate family and offer identity. Interactive activity. Analyze a fictional gang's family tree structure. What role does each person play? Goal. Show how gangs give members status, identity, and a sense of purpose, especially to those who feel invisible elsewhere. Part 5, Case examples and peer discussion. Case story. Maria's Choice, a teenage girl joins a female gang for sisterhood after years of bullying and emotional neglect at home. Peer discussion. What emotional needs is Maria fulfilling? Can you think of non-violent groups that meet the same needs? Part 6, Alternatives, Building Positive Identity. Teaching content. Youth programs that provide mentorship. Group identity through sports, clubs, faith groups. Community acknowledgement. Success model. Highlight an example of a youth who transitioned from gang involvement to leadership through a youth empowerment program. Part 7, Wrap up, Quiz and Reflection. Quiz, example questions. What emotional needs do gangs often fulfill? What is a surrogate family? True or false, all gang members come from abusive families. Reflection prompt. If you were mentoring someone considering joining a gang, what would you say to help them feel seen and valued? Part 7, Wrap up, Quiz and Reflection. Final wrap up. Reinforce key points. Everyone needs to belong. Gangs exploit that need, but alternatives exist. Distribute optional resources, community orgs, books, websites. Part 1, Introduction and Warm-Up. Activities. Icebreaker. What would you do if you had no food, no job, and no help? Overview of today's topic, survival and the lure of illegal money. Key concepts introduced. Economic desperation. Systemic inequality. Informal economies, legal and illegal. Part 2, Poverty and economic pressure. Topics covered. The cycle of poverty. Underemployment and job discrimination. Education barriers. Youth and family financial responsibilities. Teaching content. Youth in under-resourced communities often grow up in survival mode. Some are forced to take on adult responsibilities early. Selling drugs, theft, or running scams may appear as the only way to survive. Part 2, Poverty and economic pressure. Activity. Budget simulation. You're 17. You have $0. Your family is hungry. What are your options? Discussion questions. Is it a choice if there are no real options? What would you do differently if you had access to education, jobs, or mentors? Part 3, The role of gangs in financial survival. Topics covered. Gangs as underground employers. Drug sales, theft, carjacking, smuggling, extortion. Incentives, fast money, cash flow, and street respect. Teaching content. Gangs prey on the financial desperation of youth. Often, they recruit by offering cash, gifts, or helping with family bills. Youth may feel a sense of agency and power in illegal activity. Part 3, The role of gangs in financial survival. Media. Clip or story, former gang member talking about making money fast, but paying a price later. Risks discussion. Violence, prison, early death. No long-term security. Perpetuating poverty and trauma. Part 4, Real stories, why they did it. Case Study 1, Darnell's Hustle. 15-year-old forced to support his siblings after mom is arrested. Starts selling weed to pay rent. Case Study 2, Keisha's Trap. Dropped out of school due to bullying and poverty. Ends up working in a gang-run scam operation to earn fast money. Part 5, Alternatives to illegal income. Topics. Community programs and job training. Mentorship and re-entry programs. Financial literacy and microbusiness ideas. Examples of success. Youth-led community gardens turned into income. A teen started a clothing brand with community support. Local entrepreneur teaches barbering to keep teens out of gangs. Part 6, Quiz, Wrap-Up, Reflection. White heavy checkmark quiz, sample questions. What is one reason youth may turn to illegal activity? What kind of support can reduce gang recruitment? True or false, most gang members are rich and retire comfortably. Vulnerabilities exploited by recruiters, poverty, lack of support, trauma. Suggested activities. Course objectives. By the end of this session, participants will understand how gang recruiters identify and target vulnerable individuals. Recognize key vulnerabilities, poverty, lack of support, and trauma. Explore real-life examples of exploitation and manipulation. Examine how trauma and unmet needs increase gang susceptibility. Learn intervention strategies and protective factors. Part 1, Introduction and Warm-Up. Activities. Icebreaker. Have you ever seen someone take advantage of someone else? How did it make you feel? Overview of the lesson topic, how gangs exploit unmet needs. Key concepts introduced. Exploitation. Vulnerability. Recruitment strategy. Part 2, the nature of vulnerability. Topics covered. Poverty and economic hardship. Lack of family or community support. Childhood trauma, abuse, neglect, violence. Mental health struggles, insecurity, and fear. Teaching content. Recruiters look for kids with gaps in support, identity, and stability. Common signs of high-risk youth. Always alone or angry. Seeking validation or affection. Struggling with basic needs, food, shelter, clothing. Part 3, how recruiters operate. Topics covered. Emotional manipulation. Offering protection, family, or money. Preying on trauma and insecurity. Slowly grooming targets over time. Teaching content. Recruiters don't always use threats, they often use kindness first. They fill unmet emotional needs before asking for loyalty or favors. Short video or audio story simulation. Former gang recruiter describes his process, how he'd make you feel like a king before turning you into a soldier. Red flags. Sudden new clothes or money. Isolation from old friends. Pressure to prove loyalty. Part 4, Real Stories of Exploitation. Case Study 1, Jamal's Deal. 13-year-old with no father, bullied at school, offered protection by an older gang member. Joins after he gets beat up again. Case Study 2, Tiana's Trap. Foster care teen. Her boyfriend invites her into a gang that ends up exploiting her emotionally and financially. Group analysis. What made them vulnerable? What tactics did the recruiters use? Could anyone have helped them earlier? Part 5, Prevention and Protective Factors. Topics. Stable relationships with adults, mentors, teachers, relatives. Access to mental health and trauma-informed care. Youth empowerment programs. Safe spaces, community centers, clubs, churches, sport. Protective factors. Sense of belonging. Trust in adults. Self-worth and future goals. Example success story. A teen leaves a gang after a counselor helps him process trauma and joins a youth media group. Understanding the pull, why youth join gangs. Learning objectives. By the end of this session, participants will explore multiple personal, social, and environmental reasons youth join gangs. Understand emotional and psychological factors behind gang attraction. Analyze and discuss peer influences, trauma, protection, identity, and economic survival. Build empathy for vulnerable youth rather than blame. Learn how to identify risk factors and support those at risk. Part 1, Icebreaker and Framing the Topic. Icebreaker. When did you feel like you truly belonged to something? What made you stay? Participants share briefly, pairs or small groups. Framing discussion. Define gang broadly, not just crime, but also community, protection, identity. Ask, if a youth joins a gang, does it always mean they're bad? Emphasize non-judgmental curiosity. Part 2, Short Presentation, Why Youth Join Gangs. Facilitator presents briefly on 5 key motivators. Using real-life examples. 1. Belonging and family. Gang equals surrogate family, replaces absent or dysfunctional home. 2. Protection and safety. Gangs offer safety from bullying, rivals, or street violence. 3. Money and survival. Fast money from drugs, robbery, scams, especially in poverty. Part 3. Structured group discussion. Format: divide into small groups, 3 to 6 people. Assign each group 1 to 2 discussion themes. Facilitator rotates or co-leads group questions. Group A: emotional needs and belonging. Why might a youth feel emotionally disconnected at home or school? Can a gang feel like a family? Is the desire to belong more powerful than fear? Group B: money and survival. If you were 15, broke, and taking care of siblings, what would you do? Why do gangs appeal to financially struggling teens? Part 4. Share back and takeaways. Each group shares key points, 2 to 3 minutes each. Facilitator captures themes on a whiteboard or slide. Emotional pain. Lack of support. Environment of violence. Poverty and survival. Searching for worth. Key message. Youth don't just choose gangs, they're pushed toward them when society fails to offer better options. Looking within, reflecting on personal and community risk factors. Direct hit learning objectives. By the end of this session, participants will reflect on their personal experiences and environment to identify possible risk factors. Understand how individual, family, and community conditions can contribute to gang involvement or vulnerability. Explore the emotional and psychological impact of trauma, neglect, poverty, and unsafe environments. Develop self-awareness and community insight as tools for resilience and prevention. Begin forming a personal plan to reduce exposure to risk and strengthen protective factors. Part 1. Introduction and Safe Space Guidelines. Welcome and ground rules. Confidentiality and respect. No judgment or personal pressure to share. Everyone's story is valid. Brief overview. This session is about understanding risk through personal and local reflection, not about blame. Part 2. Understanding risk, personal, family and community. Risk factor categories. Personal risk factors. Low self-esteem, unresolved trauma, substance use, lack of goals. Family risk factors. Domestic violence, absent parents, poverty, neglect, abuse. Community risk factors. High crime, gangs, drug presence, few job/educational opportunities, broken trust in systems. Part 3. Guided reflection activity. Individual writing and drawing exercise. Provide paper or journals for these prompts. Journal prompts. What's one thing in your life or community that makes you feel unsafe? Have you ever felt pressure to join something for protection, money, or identity? What do you wish your neighborhood had more of? Who supports you when you struggle? If no one, what do you need? Part 4. Sharing and small group dialogue. Small group format. Voluntary sharing of reflection, no pressure. Discuss patterns. What did we notice? What risks showed up the most? Facilitator guided questions. Are these risks common in your community? How do these risks affect your choices? What support or changes would help reduce those risks? Part 5. Protective factors and support resources. Protective factors. Supportive relationships. Access to positive programs or mentors. Feeling safe at school or home. Having a voice and purpose. Provide. A handout or poster listing local support systems, community centers, crisis lines, mentors, food/shelter resources, job training, etc. Part 6. Journal, quiz and wrap-up. Quick quiz, 5 minutes. Name one personal risk factor. Name one protective factor. True or false, everyone has risk factors. What matters is how we deal with them. Final reflection prompt. What's one change you want to make in your life, or in your neighborhood, to feel safer or stronger? Module 2. The cost of gang affiliation, violence, criminal records, personal loss. Living on the edge, the violent reality of gang life. Course objectives. By the end of this session, participants will understand the daily violence experienced by gang-involved youth. Recognize the high risk of injury, trauma, or death. Explore how retaliation cycles and turf conflicts escalate violence. Hear personal stories of survival and loss. Reflect on safer, life-affirming choices and alternatives to gang life. Part 1. Welcome and Introduction. Icebreaker. What's something in your life that's too valuable to lose? Participants write or say one thing they value, e.g., family, future, freedom. Key message. Gang life doesn't just risk your freedom, it risks your life. Part 2. Understanding gang-related violence. Topics covered. Types of violence in gang life. Shootings, stabbings, beatings. Retaliation, turf wars, initiation violence. Everyday risk, hanging out, walking home, wearing the wrong color. Emotional toll, fear, PTSD, numbness. Part 3, Real Stories, I Almost Didn't Make It. Video testimony, or live reading, choose 2 to 3 examples. 1. Dre's story. 16-year-old shot while hanging at a party. Wrong place, wrong time. Now paralyzed from the waist down. 2. Marisol's story. Her brother was murdered in a drive-by. She joined a gang to get revenge and got shot a year later. 3. Antoine's story. Survived 3 shootings before deciding to get out. Says he constantly lives with fear and guilt. Part 4, Risk Reflection Activity, How Close Are You? Confidential Self-Assessment. Participants complete a risk reflection sheet ranking the following on a 1 to 5 scale. I've seen someone shot or badly hurt. I've been in a situation where I thought I might be killed. I know someone close who has died due to gang violence. I avoid certain places because of gang-related fear. I've carried a weapon for protection. I've ever thought joining a gang would keep me safe. Part 5, Coping with Violence and Finding Safety. Coping Tools. Recognize trauma symptoms, anger, flashbacks, shutdown. Talk to someone, peer mentors, trauma counselors. Know how to create physical and emotional distance from violence. Support systems to highlight. Safe spaces, youth centers, sports programs, drop-in counseling. Violence interruption programs, cure violence, local alternatives. Gang exit programs and conflict de-escalation services. Circle of safety, activity, quick. Draw a circle. Inside, who/what makes you feel safe? Outside, threats. Reflect, how do I move more toward the center? Part 6, Quiz, Wrap-Up and Personal Commitment. Quick quiz. What's one way gang life puts someone at risk of violence or death? True or false, most gang-related deaths are predictable and avoidable. What is one safe resource in your area? Personal journal prompt. If I chose to walk away from violence, what part of my life would I be protecting? Who would I want to live for? Final wrap-up. Every time you avoid a violent path, you protect your future, and your life. Locked out, how criminal records close doors to education and jobs. Learning objectives. By the end of this session, participants will understand how a criminal record, even as a youth, affects future opportunities. Learn the difference between misdemeanors, felonies, and juvenile records. Explore how criminal history impacts education, employment, housing, and military options. Hear stories of individuals who faced barriers due to their records. Identify strategies for prevention, rehabilitation, and re-entry. Part 1, Welcome and Icebreaker. Icebreaker. Imagine your dream job or college. What if one bad choice made it unreachable? Participants briefly share goals they care about. Framing message. Criminal records aren't just about jail, they follow you into the future. Part 2, What is a criminal record? Topics covered. Definition: a criminal record is a documented history of arrests, charges, and/or convictions. Difference between juvenile record versus adult record. Misdemeanor versus felony. Some juvenile records don't disappear automatically. Background checks are used by employers, colleges and scholarship boards, military recruiters, landlords. Part 3, How records impact your future. Real consequences. College access. Some colleges reject applicants with convictions. Financial aid, like FAFSA, may be denied or delayed for drug convictions. Employment. Many employers won't hire people with records, even for entry-level jobs. Careers like teaching, security, healthcare, government, or law are often blocked. Housing and military. Criminal history limits access to public housing. Military branches require background checks. Travel and voting. Some countries refuse entry, e.g., Canada. In some areas, voting rights are taken away after felony convictions. Part 4, Real Stories, One Mistake, Lifetime Consequences. Testimonies or read aloud examples. Story 1, Jermaine's story. Got caught with stolen electronics at 17. Now 25, can't get hired in tech even with a certificate. Story 2, Lisa's story. A single mom who joined a gang briefly in high school. Her drug-related record disqualified her from nursing school. Story 3, Malik's story. Got into a fight that led to a felony assault charge. Lost his football scholarship and military eligibility. Part 5, What you can do, prevention, sealing records, and support. Strategies for moving forward. Avoiding the system. Know your rights. Think long-term before taking short-term risks. Getting help. Legal aid for record sealing or expungement. Mentorship and job training programs. Re-entry services and second-chance employers. Alternatives to gangs. Join youth organizations, sports teams, creative programs, trade training. Part 6, Quiz, Reflection, and Wrap-Up. Quick quiz. True or false, all juvenile records disappear when you turn 18. Name 2 areas of life impacted by a criminal record. What is one way someone can reduce the long-term damage of a past mistake? Journal prompt. If I could give my younger self one warning about the future, what would it be? Final message. Your freedom is more than staying out of jail, it's keeping your future wide open. Fractured bonds, how gang life damages family and trust. Learning objectives. By the end of this session, participants will be able to understand how gang involvement strains or destroys family relationships. Identify ways gang behavior leads to loss of trust within homes. Explore how betrayal, secrets, and fear create emotional distance. Reflect on personal or observed family impact of gang choices. Discuss how trust can be rebuilt after harm has occurred. Part 1, Welcome and Framing. Icebreaker prompt. What does trust mean in a family? What breaks it? Brief individual sharing or right on board. Opening message. Gangs don't just hurt you, they hurt the people who care about you most. Part 2, What happens to family when you join a gang? Key impacts. Secrecy and lying. Hiding activities, money, weapons. Constant fear of being found out or raided. Disrespect and disconnection. Ignoring rules, being aggressive or absent. Pulling away from parents, siblings, caretakers. Visual chart. Before versus after gang involvement. X, trust suspicion, love distance, safety fear. Discussion questions. How does gang involvement change how your family sees you? What does it feel like to lose trust from the people you love? Part 3, Real Stories, They Didn't Recognize Me Anymore. Short testimonials or read-aloud accounts. Story 1, Luis's story. Got involved in gang fights at 15. His mom stopped talking to him. His younger brother stopped coming into his room. Story 2, Tasha's story. Used to be close with her grandma until she started dealing drugs. Her grandma cried every time she left the house. Story 3, Jeremiah's story. Was kicked out of his house after police raided it looking for guns. His dad hasn't called him since. Part 4, Group Activity, Web of Trust. Instructions. Each participant receives yarn and index cards. On the cards, they write. One person who trusts them. One person they may have broken trust with. One person they want to earn trust back from. Participants pass yarn to each person they name, forming a web. Part 4, Group Activity, Web of Trust. Purpose. Show how relationships are all connected. When trust is broken, it affects more than one person. Group Reflection. What happens when one part of the web is cut? How does gang life break this web? How can the web be repaired? Part 5, Healing, Can Relationships Be Repaired? Key points. Broken trust can be rebuilt, but it takes honesty and time. Apologizing doesn't fix everything, but it's the first step. Leaving the gang can help others believe in you again. Rebuilding is not about perfection, it's about effort and change. Strategies for repair. Open up to family about the truth. Take responsibility, not excuses. Show change through consistent action. Find a mentor or counselor to help rebuild communication. Prompt: what's one small thing you could do today to repair trust with someone you've hurt? Trapped inside, the hidden emotional cost of gang life. Learning objectives. By the end of this session, participants will understand the emotional and psychological effects of gang involvement. Recognize signs of guilt, fear, and isolation in themselves or peers. Explore how these feelings build over time and influence choices. Reflect on personal mental health and seek positive outlets. Learn about emotional recovery and support systems. Part 1: Welcome and Icebreaker. Icebreaker prompt: what's one feeling that's hard to talk about but easy to feel? Participants write anonymous responses or share out loud. Opening message: gang life doesn't just cost you safety, it can cost you your peace of mind. Part 2: What emotions do gang-involved youth face? Topics covered: guilt, over hurting others, disappointing family, getting friends hurt. Survivor's guilt after seeing someone close get killed. Fear, constant alertness, threats, retaliation, being jumped, arrested, or killed. Not knowing who to trust. Isolation, cutting off friends and family. Not being able to talk to anyone about what you've done or seen. Feeling trapped in a lifestyle you don't want anymore. Data points, if available. Rates of PTSD and depression in gang-involved youth. Percent of youth reporting suicidal thoughts after violent exposure. Discussion questions. Can someone be both powerful and scared? What does emotional exhaustion look like? Part 3: Real Voices, What It Felt Like. Stories/testimonies. 1. I didn't sleep for weeks, Kevin's story. After robbing someone, Kevin started having panic attacks and nightmares. He became distant from everyone. 2. I couldn't tell my mom, Sierra's story. Sierra witnessed a violent act and carried the guilt alone. She stopped coming home and lost all her friendships. 3. No one really knows me, Dre's story. Even in the gang, Dre felt alone. Everyone had a role to play, but no one could talk about real pain. Part 4: Emotional Mapping Activity, What's Under the Mask. Materials. Paper with 2 sides of a face, or printable mask template. Instructions. Outside of the face, draw or write what emotions you show the world, e.g., tough, chill, angry. Inside of the face, draw or write what emotions you hide, e.g., fear, shame, sadness. Group reflection. Why do people hide their true emotions? What does the mask protect, and what does it cost? Part 5: Coping Tools and Emotional Support. Emotional Recovery Tools. Talk it out, therapists, mentors, or trusted peers. Write it out, journals, poetry, or letters you never send. Move it out, physical activity, sports, music, dance. Get away from triggers, choose different people, places, habits. Support systems. School counselors. Trauma recovery programs, youth-focused. Violence interruption organizations. Community mentors or faith groups. Self-check prompt. What's something that makes you feel safe to be vulnerable? Lessons from the streets, real stories of youth affected by gangs. Learning objectives. By the end of this session, participants will understand the personal and social consequences of gang involvement through real-life stories. Reflect on the decisions and turning points in each story. Identify patterns of risk and opportunities for change. Analyze the emotional, legal, and relational outcomes of gang life. Recognize how choices, both good and bad, shape futures. Part 1, Welcome and Why Stories Matter. Icebreaker prompt. Have you ever heard a story that made you rethink a decision or action? Brief group sharing or write a word on the board that represents change. Opening message. Stories bring statistics to life. They show the emotions, pain, and hope behind the facts. Part 2, Case Study 1, Rashad's Story. Theme, violence, peer pressure, and loss. Summary. Rashad was 16 when he joined a local gang to protect himself from bullies and feel accepted. He started off running errands but was soon carrying weapons. During a retaliation drive-by, his best friend Jay was killed, and Rashad was arrested. Key points. Motivated by protection and fear. Got deeper due to loyalty and peer pressure. Lost his friend, lost his freedom. Now 22, on probation, trying to mentor others. X. Part 3, Case Study 2, Karina's Story. Theme, criminal record, family disconnection, redemption. Summary. Karina joined a gang at 15 to feel a sense of power after years of being neglected and abused at home. She was arrested at 17 for drug possession and lost her chance at a college scholarship. Her mom refused to bail her out. After serving time, she joined a re-entry program and is now training to be a youth counselor. Key points. Trauma and home instability were major risk factors. Short-term validation led to long-term consequences. Lost trust and support from family. Found purpose in helping others avoid her path. Optional video or read aloud script. Discussion questions. What made Karina vulnerable to recruitment? What was the moment she turned her life around? How can we help others find their turnaround moment? Part 4, Group Activity, What would you do? Instructions. Break into small groups. Each group gets a fictional but realistic gang-related scenario, inspired by the case studies. Examples. A friend pressures you to hold a gun, just for one night. You see a gang member recruiting your younger sibling. You want to leave but are afraid of retaliation. Part 5, Wrap-Up Reflection, Lessons Learned. Open questions. What do Rashad and Karina's stories have in common? If you could talk to them at age 14, what would you say? Personal reflection prompt. What part of their stories reminded you of yourself or someone you know? Students may write or share voluntarily. Life in the Crossfire, Mapping the Impact of Gang Involvement. Learning objectives. By the end of this session, participants will identify the personal, social, and legal consequences of gang involvement. Use visual tools to trace the ripple effects of one decision. Connect gang-related choices to long-term outcomes in real life. Reflect on personal risk areas and protective strategies. Practice planning for healthy and legal decision-making. Part 1, Welcome and Framing the Lesson. Icebreaker prompt. What's a decision that seemed small but had a big effect on your life? Write on board or share in a circle. Opening message. Every choice sets off a chain reaction. Mapping it helps you see where it's headed, and how to change it. Part 2, Understanding the Types of Consequences. Focus areas. Personal. Guilt, trauma, fear, addiction. Missed education. Poor physical and mental health. Loss of dreams and goals. Social. Broken family bonds. Loss of friendships or community trust. Influence on younger siblings or peers. Being targeted for retaliation. Legal. Arrests, probation, jail time. Loss of job and school opportunities. Being labeled in the justice system. Juvenile record turning into adult record. Part 3, Main Activity, Build an Impact Map. Instructions. In the center of a page, write one gang-related decision, e.g., joined a gang, sold drugs, got into a gang fight. Draw 3 branches outward. Personal. Social. Legal. Under each branch, write or draw the short-term and long-term consequences that might happen. Part 3, Main Activity, Build an Impact Map. Encourage creativity, use colors, symbols, or metaphors, e.g., broken hearts, prison bars, torn photos. Sample. Decision, carried a weapon for the gang. Personal, constant fear, anxiety. Social, mom doesn't trust me, siblings scared. Legal, caught at school juvenile detention. Part 4, Small Group Presentations. Instructions. In groups of 3 to 5 participants. Share their impact maps. Identify common consequences. Talk about which one surprised them or felt close to home. Guiding questions. Which impact hit you the hardest? How do consequences affect more than just the person in the gang? Did anyone include something you didn't think about? Module 3. Media, Music, and Myths versus Realities. Behind the Bars, Understanding Mass Incarceration Beyond the Hype. Learning Objectives. By the end of this session, participants will be able to define mass incarceration and understand its historical development. Identify key statistics about incarceration in the U.S. and globally. Examine the racial, social, and economic disparities in incarceration rates. Recognize how media and music shape public perception of incarceration. Separate myths from facts using evidence and data. Part 1, Warm-up and Vocabulary. Icebreaker prompt. When you hear the word prison, what images or messages come to mind? Write on the board. Expect responses like danger, violence, gangs, punishment, bars, TV shows, rap lyrics, orange jumpsuits, etc. Key vocabulary. Mass incarceration. Prison industrial complex. Mandatory minimums. Recidivism. Racial disparity. Systemic inequality. Briefly define each term and ask, which one do you hear in real life or media the most? Part 2. What is mass incarceration? Mini lecture with slides or charts. US has 4% of the world's population but 20% of the world's prisoners. Over 2 million people are incarcerated in the US, state, federal, local. Explosion began in the 1970s with the war on drugs and tough on crime laws. US incarceration rate per 100,000 people is 5-10x higher than most countries. Part 3, Who's locked up and why? Group discussion or slide breakdown. Racial disparities. Black Americans are incarcerated at over 5x the rate of white Americans. Economic impact. Poor communities are policed more heavily and have less access to quality legal defense. School-to-prison pipeline. How suspensions, expulsions, and juvenile arrests lead to prison. Private prisons and profit motive. Scenario prompt. Two people commit the same crime. One has money and the other doesn't. What happens differently in court? Part 4, Media and Music Influence, What We're Told. Audio, video examples, optional. Lyrics from popular rap songs glorifying jail time. Movie/TV clips of prison scenes, e.g., Orange is the New Black, Oz, Prison Break. Social media trends or memes joking about jail. Debrief. How is incarceration portrayed? Cool, scary, normal, heroic, inevitable. How does this affect how young people view jail and law enforcement? Think, pair, share. Can music or media normalize prison culture? What's the risk when prison is treated like a rite of passage? Part 5, Myths versus Realities Activity. Quiz or game, team-based. Myth or fact? Most people in prison are there for violent crimes. Crossmark. Black and white Americans use drugs at similar rates, but black people are far more likely to be arrested. White heavy check mark. Private prisons hold the majority of US prisoners, crossmark. Most people in jail haven't been convicted, they're just awaiting trial. White heavy check mark. The US prison population has been decreasing every year, crossmark, small declines, but still very high. Part 6, Personal Reflection and Wrap-Up. Journal prompt. What did you learn today that challenges what you've seen in the media or heard in music? What role do I want to play in spreading truth about incarceration? Optional exit ticket. What's one fact you'll remember, and one question you still have? Glamorization of gang life. Learning objectives. By the end of this session, participants will understand how music, film, social media, and pop culture glamorize gang life. Identify how these portrayals hide the real costs, violence, trauma, and loss. Analyze media messages for manipulation, exaggeration, and misinformation. Reflect on how glamorized images impact youth perceptions and decisions. Begin forming a critical lens when consuming media about crime, gangs, or violence. Lights, camera, consequences, deconstructing media. Part 1, Warm-up and Intro Discussion. Opening question. Where do most young people get their ideas about gangs? Expected answers, rap videos, movies, Instagram Reels, TikTok, Netflix, Friends. Discuss. What emotions do these portrayals create? Excitement? Fear? Respect? Do these stories show the whole picture? Part 2, Media Breakdown, What They Show versus What they hide. What they show. Money, power, luxury, loyalty, fame, brotherhood. Parties, flashy clothes, cars, weapons. Street respect or toughness. What they often hide. Grief, PTSD, prison, addiction. Murdered friends and retaliation. Mother's tears, broken homes. Long-term consequences, no passport, job, or peace of mind. Quick examples. Music video, blurred if needed. Movie trailer clip, e.g., Scarface, menace to society, power. TikTok trend showing gang signs, weapons, or flexing. Discussion prompt. Why do you think these realities are left out of music or videos? Part 3, Lyric and Clip Analysis Activity. Group Activity. Break into 3 to 4 groups. Each group gets a song lyric, short music video clip, or meme/post. A worksheet with 3 questions. What message is this sending about gang life? What's missing or not being shown? How could someone your age interpret this message? Share out. Each group presents their answers. Part 4, Real-Life Voices, What the Media Doesn't Say. Case study excerpts or testimonials. Read or play 2 to 3 short stories of people who were in gangs and describe trauma from violence. Time in prison and what they lost. Regret and lost relationships. Fear, guilt, and starting over. I thought I was a boss. I ended up in a cell, alone, writing letters no one answered. Part 5, Group Work, Rewriting the Narrative. Activity. In small groups, rewrite a song, scene, or social media post to tell the truth about gang life. Options include rap lyrics showing the fear, guilt, and loss. A movie poster with real consequences in the tagline. A TikTok-style script showing a before and after, money/fame jail/funeral. Goal, flip the narrative. Make truth louder than the hype. Optional share out if time allows. Sounds and screens, how music and pop culture distort reality. Learning objectives. By the end of this lesson, students will be able to recognize how music, movies, and social media shape perceptions of crime, gangs, and success. Analyze how these portrayals can distort truth, glamorize danger, or oversimplify complex issues. Explore the psychological and behavioral impact of repeated exposure to distorted narratives. Practice critical thinking when engaging with songs, videos, memes, and influencers. Begin developing their own authentic voices based on reality, not hype. Part 1, Icebreaker and Guided Discussion. Warm-up activity. What's a song, show, or trend that influenced how people see street life, success, or respect? Write examples on the board, e.g., drill music, trap rap, movies like Scarface, shows like Power or Narcos, TikTok trends, memes. Discussion prompts. What message is it sending? Does it reflect your real life or someone you know? Is it exaggerated, true, or both? Part 2, Pop culture's power, influence on beliefs. Mini lecture with examples. Pop culture isn't just entertainment, it shapes what we value, what we fear, and what we chase. Repetition in lyrics or images changes perception. If you see it enough, it starts to feel normal, even if it's not real. Key themes that get distorted. Violence equals power. Wealth equals crime equals respect. Women equals objects. Gangs equals family/loyalty. Drugs equals escape, fame, fun. Part 3, Music and Media Dissection Workshop. Activity, what's the message? Break into small groups. Give each group one of the following. A short rap lyric or music video excerpt. A trending meme or video clip. A viral influencer quote or skit. Use this analysis template. What is being shown or said? What's the message behind it? Is it realistic or exaggerated? What might someone believe after seeing/hearing this? Who benefits from that message? Part 4, Real-world impact of distorted messages. Case study examples, can be read aloud or played. Story of a teen influenced by online gang culture who later faced charges. Interview clip with a rapper who regrets glamorizing guns and drugs. Quote from a teacher, probation officer, or mentor about pop culture's effect on youth. Group discussion. Can believing the hype put someone in danger? Why do some artists tell the truth only after success, or after jail? Part 5, Reclaiming the Narrative. Creative challenge. Let's flip the script. Create a lyric, social media post, or scene that shows real life, not just the filtered fantasy. Options. A rap verse about the cost of street life. An Instagram story warning peers about false images. A TikTok-style dialogue exposing the before and after of gang life or prison. Optional share out or gallery walk. Busting the myth, the truth behind the romance of gang life. Learning objectives. By the end of this session, participants will identify and break down common myths that glamorize gang life. Understand how myths are spread through music, movies, social media, and peer culture. Examine the dangerous gap between myth and reality. Learn to critically question messages that romanticize gangs. Build personal resistance to glorified narratives through truth-based thinking. Part 1, Icebreaker and Group Brainstorm. Activity, what they say. On a whiteboard or poster, write the phrase, "Gang life is." Ask students to fill in what they've heard from music, movies, TikTok/social media, friends, older people or siblings. Example answers. Loyalty, money, respect, family, power, ride or die, no fear. Prompt. Where do these ideas come from, and are they true? Part 2, Common Gang Myths, the 5 Biggest Lies. Presentation or poster walk. Introduce and explain these 5 major myths. Myth reality. 1. Gangs are like family. Most relationships are conditional and based on usefulness. 2. You'll get rich fast. Most gang members stay broke or end up in debt, prison, or worse. 3. Gangs protect you. Gangs often put you in more danger, not less. 4. Violence earns respect. Violence brings revenge, fear, not real respect. 5. You can leave when you want. Getting out is often difficult, risky, or deadly. Use real-world data or short clips from documentaries, news stories, or youth testimonies to support each one. Part 3, Truth Check, Matching Myth to Reality. Group Activity. Give students myth cards and reality cards to match. Example. Myth card, gangs protect you from enemies. Reality card, joining makes you a target of rivals, law enforcement, and even your own gang. Students match and explain why each myth is dangerous. Optional challenge. Have them rephrase myths as warning signs, e.g. My gang is my family, my real family isn't safe. Part 4, Personal Story, I believe the myth. Choose a testimony, video, audio, or written. Example stories. A teen who joined for brotherhood but was abandoned after arrest. A girl who thought she'd be respected but was exploited. A boy who believed he'd get rich, but ended up addicted and homeless. Group discussion prompts. Which myth did they fall for? What opened their eyes? What was the cost of believing that myth? Part 5, Build a Resistance Toolkit. Activity, My Truth Shield. Students create their own myth resistance shield using these 3 tools. What I've learned, name one myth I now know isn't true. Who I trust for truth, a mentor, resource, or voice that keeps it real. What I'll say, one line to challenge the next myth I hear, e.g., that's not real respect. They can draw, write, or design it symbolically like a real shield. Truth or Trap, Media Literacy through Music and Video. Learning Objectives. By the end of this session, participants will develop skills to critically analyze music lyrics, videos, and pop culture content. Identify common myths about gang life promoted through media. Separate fiction from fact using evidence and real-world context. Understand how repetitive media messaging shapes beliefs and behavior. Practice media literacy tools for resisting false or glamorized narratives. Part 1, Introduction, Why This Matters. Opening question. Can music or videos change what we believe about street life, violence, or success? Students respond via quick poll, raised hands, or brief open discussion. Framing message. Media isn't just entertainment, it's education, influence, and pressure. If you don't think critically, you're being shaped by someone else's script. Part 2, Media Myth Primer, What to Look For. Mini lesson, Key gang-related media myths. Myth reality. Gangs equals loyalty/family. Loyalty often ends when you're no longer useful. Gang life equals money and fame. Most stay broke, in debt, or imprisoned. Violence equals respect. Violence brings fear and retaliation, not true respect. Jail equals a badge of honor. Jail leaves a record, trauma, and lost opportunities. You can leave when you want. Exiting can be risky, complicated, and even deadly. Part 3, Clip and Lyric Analysis, Round 1. Choose one or more of these, with appropriate content filtering. Music video clip, e.g., from mainstream rap or drill artist. TikTok video trend promoting gang signs or flexing. movie/TV scene glamorizing gang lifestyle or prison culture. Alternatively, provide printed lyrics to a popular song with glorified content. Group activity. Give each group a media analysis worksheet using the 5-point lens above. Each group watches/reads the clip or lyrics, identifies any myths and the missing facts, writes 2 to 3 sentences summarizing the real-world consequences. Optional share out. Each group gives a 1-minute breakdown to the class. Part 4, Clip and Lyric Analysis, Round 2. Provide a second example with a different tone or source. Lyrics from an artist who reflects on loss, prison, or pain, e.g., Tupac, J. Cole, NF, or a reformed local artist. Testimonial-style video from a youth speaking out against glamorization. A documentary segment or reality-based PSA, e.g., 13th, Beyond Scared Straight. Repeat the same group analysis method. Comparative prompt. How is this different from the first one? Which felt more real or relatable? Part 5, Group Discussion and Reflection. Guided questions. Which message hit harder, fantasy or fact? Why? Do you think most young people are more influenced by the first or second kind of media? How could we use media differently, to tell the truth instead of glamorize pain? Individual reflection prompt. What's one myth I used to believe? What opened my eyes? Optional, share answers in pairs or with the group. Truth versus hype, a myth-busting experience on gang life. Learning objectives. By the end of this session, participants will identify common myths about gang life presented in music, media, and culture. Challenge and correct false beliefs through facts, data, and personal stories. Engage in group-based critical thinking, discussion, and problem solving. Strengthen resistance to media manipulation and peer pressure. Reflect on how changing perception changes personal choices. Part 1, Icebreaker, Belief Check. Activity, What I've Heard. On index cards or a board, students complete. One thing I've heard about gangs or street life is. Discussion. Where did you hear this? Does it sound true or suspicious? Who might benefit from you believing that? Part 2, Gang Myths versus Facts Overview. Present these common myths. Myth fact. Gangs are loyal like family. Loyalty often ends when you're not useful or profitable. You'll make fast money. Most stay broke, in debt, or constantly at legal risk. Violence earns respect. It often leads to retaliation or fear, not real respect. Jail builds street cred. Jail leaves trauma, isolation, and a criminal record. You can leave whenever you want. Leaving gangs can be dangerous, complicated, or emotionally damaging. Music and media tell the truth. They often exaggerate, romanticize, or hide painful realities. Part 3, Myth-Busting Quiz, Game Format. Activity, Truth or Trap. Game Show. Divide class into teams. Give each team signs, white heavy checkmark true or crossmark false. White heavy checkmark sample quiz statements. Most gang members make a lot of money. Crossmark false. Prison is a safe place to think and reset your life. Crossmark false. Rappers and movies always reflect the real cost of gang life. Crossmark false. Gangs are the only way to feel protected in some areas. Crossmark false. Some people join gangs for identity, not violence. White heavy checkmark true. Most people in gangs end up in long-term, positive careers. Crossmark false. Leaving a gang can be emotionally and physically difficult. White heavy checkmark true. Glorifying gang life can influence real-life choices. White heavy checkmark true. You can trust every story you hear in music or online. Crossmark false. Bonus round. Each team writes one false myth and challenges the other teams to correct it with facts. Part 4, Group Discussion, Debrief and Dive Deeper. Discussion prompts. Which myths did most people get wrong, and why? How do these myths get planted in people's minds? Can you see the harm in believing even one of these myths? Why is the truth less popular in media than the fantasy? Use real-life stories, youth testimonials, short videos, or quotes, to ground the discussion in reality. Part 5, Create your own Mythbuster cards. Activity. Each student or pair creates one myth versus reality card with a myth they once believed, the truth they've learned, a symbol, image, or phrase that debunks the lie. Hang these on a truth wall or keep them for journaling reference. Module 4. Exit Planning and Support Systems. Understanding mass incarceration, the first step to successful re-entry. Learning objectives. By the end of this session, participants will be able to define mass incarceration and describe how it affects individuals, families, and communities. Understand the scale and impact of the U.S. prison system, especially on marginalized populations. Identify the barriers and challenges individuals face when exiting incarceration. Recognize the role of exit planning and support systems in breaking the cycle. Begin to develop a personal roadmap for reintegration. Part 1, Icebreaker. What do we know about prison? Activity. When you hear the word incarceration, what comes to mind? Write responses on the board, words like punishment, gangs, justice, reform, prison bars, racism, second chance, etc. Prompt. What do you think causes incarceration? Who do you think is most affected? How do communities feel the impact? Let this introduce the importance of context before re-entry work begins. Part 1, Icebreaker. What do we know about prison? Part 2, what is mass incarceration? Definition and context. Mass incarceration equals the extreme scale of imprisonment in the U.S., starting in the late 20th century. Growth tied to the war on drugs, mandatory minimums, and tough-on-crime policies. Disproportionate impact on Black, brown, and low-income communities. Key facts. The U.S. has 4% of the world's population but 20% of its prisoners. Over 2 million people are incarcerated in jails and prisons. Another 4.5 million are under supervision, probation/parole. Discussion prompt. Why do you think incarceration became so large in the U.S.? Part 3, the scale and scope, who is locked up and why? Topics to cover. Breakdown of prison population by race, age, and offense type. Myths versus facts. Myth, most are in for violent crime. Fact, many are incarcerated for non-violent offenses or parole violations. Juvenile incarceration and the school-to-prison pipeline. The economic cost of incarceration to taxpayers and families. Visuals/media, optional. Short clip or infographic. Quotes or short interviews from incarcerated/formerly incarcerated people. Group discussion. What do these stats and stories tell us about how the system operates? Part 4, why understanding the system matters for re-entry. Core ideas. Exit planning is not just about leaving prison, it's about navigating a system that follows you. Understanding systemic issues helps reduce self-blame and increase strategic thinking. Knowing the scale of incarceration reveals how common and normalized it's become, and why support systems are essential. Part 5, Group Activity, Build a visual map of impact. Instructions. Break into small groups and draw a mind map that includes mass incarceration at the center. Branches, individual impact, family/community impact, economic impact, emotional/psychological impact. Then add, how support systems can help in each area. Optional, share out or hang up posters. Part 6, Personal Reflection and Exit Ticket. Journal Prompt. What surprised me about the scale of incarceration? What part of the system do I need to be aware of as I plan for my future? How can understanding the big picture help me take control of my next step? Exit Ticket. One thing I learned today about mass incarceration that affects re-entry is. Final takeaway. You're not alone. The system is big, but so is your support. Know the system. Beat the system. The turning point, knowing when to leave and building the strength to walk away. Learning objectives. By the end of this session, participants will identify warning signs or internal signals that it may be time to leave gang life or street involvement. Explore the emotional barriers and fears that make leaving difficult. Begin building mental resilience and emotional preparation for the process of change. Develop tools for managing doubt, guilt, threats, or pressure. Reflect on personal motivations for exiting and envision a life beyond. Part 1, Opening Circle, I knew it was time when. Activity. Prompt participants to share anonymously, on paper or in a circle, moments like. I realized this wasn't for me when. I started thinking about leaving when. I got tired of. Facilitator reads a few responses and asks. What do these moments have in common? How can someone tell it's time to go? Goal. Help participants connect personal experience to emotional clarity and a growing sense of readiness. Part 2, Warning Signs and Internal Signals. Discussion. Introduce and explore signs it may be time to exit. Feeling empty, numb, or disconnected. Constant paranoia, stress, or sleep loss. Watching close friends die or go to prison. Realizing promises, money, loyalty, weren't real. Wanting something better for self or family. Shame around younger siblings or children. Activity, signals I've felt. Participants check off or circle signs they've experienced from a provided worksheet. Then discuss. Which signs have hit you the hardest? What do they say about your next step? Part 3, Emotional Barriers, What Holds People Back. Guided discussion. Explore real fears and mental blocks like fear of being seen as weak or a traitor, losing protection or respect, isolation or retaliation, lack of plan or support system, feeling too deep in to get out. Facilitator normalizes these emotions. Fear is real, but fear can also be a sign that you care about your life. Add testimony or story. Play or read a brief real-life story of someone who feared leaving but made it through. Part 4, Mental Preparation Strategies. Teach skills for building inner strength. Self-talk reframe, from I'm stuck to I'm choosing change. Visualize the new life, not a fantasy, but peace, purpose, safety. Write your why for your future self, family, or dreams. Build silent strength, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. Quick centering exercise. Close eyes. Visualize standing at a crossroads. One road leads back. One leads forward. Who do you become if you step forward? Part 5. Build your exit mindset plan. Personal activity sheet. Each participant fills in what I'm leaving behind: pain, stress, loss. What I want to move toward: peace, purpose, stability. 3 signs I knew it was time. What will keep me focused when I'm doubting or afraid? Optional: share parts in pairs or keep it private. Find your circle, building the right support for your next chapter. Learning objectives. By the end of this session, participants will understand the importance of support systems in exiting street or gang life. Identify different types of positive, trustworthy support, family, mentors, programs. Recognize the difference between real support versus risky influences. Create a personal support circle map to plan who they can turn to. Learn how to approach, build, and maintain healthy support relationships. Part 1. Icebreaker. Who's got your back? Activity. Name one person or group that's ever helped you in a hard moment. What did they do that made you trust them? Participants can answer aloud, in pairs, or write on index cards. Debrief. Discuss common traits: honesty, listens without judging, reliable, doesn't pressure, respects your boundaries. Part 2. What makes a support system trustworthy? Mini lesson: types of support. 1. Family support. Parent, sibling, grandparent, cousin, etc. May require rebuilding trust, but can be powerful. 2. Mentors. Teachers, coaches, counselors, caseworkers. Often provide long-term emotional and decision-making guidance. 3. Community programs. Youth centers, re-entry programs, faith-based groups, therapy. Offer resources like housing, jobs, emotional support, structure. 4. Peer support. Friends on the same path of growth. Needs to be healthy and non-toxic. Part 3. Mapping your support circle. Activity: build your support circle. Give each participant a support circle map worksheet. Instructions. Center, you. First ring, people who fully support your growth. Second ring, people who want to support you but may need boundaries. Third ring, professionals, mentors, or programs you'd like to reach out to. Mark with heavy checkmark who you trust most and crossmark who may not be safe/supportive. Optional sharing. Discuss how it felt to identify supporters, and who's missing. Part 4. Spotting red flags, real help versus fake loyalty. Compare 2 types of support. Trustworthy support: risky influence. Listens without judging. Guilt trips or pressures you. Respects your choice. Manipulates you into staying. Encourages your goals. Talks you out of leaving the life. Checks on your mental health. Only checks in when they want something. Helps you avoid trouble. Drags you back into conflict. Part 5. Connecting to local resources. Share or explore. Local re-entry programs. Youth organizations, Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, community shelters, etc. Faith-based mentors or support groups. School counselors, therapists, career coaches. National hotlines or online programs. Group brainstorm. Who in your city or community could be a lifeline? Optional: distribute a handout or build a local support list with the group. Know your lifelines, legal and social resources for a safer future. Learning objectives. By the end of this session, participants will Understand the types of legal and social support available during or after involvement with the justice system. Learn what diversion programs, re-entry services, and counseling options exist. Identify which resources apply to their situation or community. Break the stigma around seeking help and support. Begin forming a personal connection plan to reach out to available services. Part 1, Icebreaker, have you ever heard of? Activity. Ask participants to stand or raise a hand if they've heard of. Court diversion programs. Youth counseling. Probation alternatives. Peer mentors. Mental health therapy. Legal aid clinics. Re-entry housing or job programs. Goal. Reveal how many helpful resources exist, even if they're underused or misunderstood. Part 2, Legal diversion and re-entry programs. Teach. What are diversion programs? Court-approved alternatives to jail or traditional prosecution. Designed to reduce criminal records, offer rehabilitation, and prevent repeat offenses. Examples: youth courts, drug diversion, restorative justice, community service alternatives. What are re-entry services? Programs that support people transitioning out of jail/prison. Focused on housing, job training, education, ID support, and mental health. Part 2, Legal diversion and re-entry programs. Group discussion. What would you need from a diversion or re-entry program to feel supported? Real examples, customizable to your area. Local, youth diversion programs. Credible messengers or violence interrupters. Community-based probation. Re-entry centers, e.g., the Fortune Society, Homeboy Industries. Part 3, Counseling, Therapy and Peer Support Options. Topics to cover. Why counseling helps during exit planning. Process trauma and guilt. Build confidence and boundaries. Manage anxiety, PTSD, or grief. Help deal with addiction or triggers. Types of support. Individual therapy. Group sessions. Grief and trauma programs. School counselors or outreach workers. Faith-based spiritual support. Peer mentors, those with similar life experience. Part 4, Build a personal resource map. Activity. Provide each student with a resource mapping worksheet. Break it into zones. Need area my local resource contact person when/how I'll reach out. Legal support. Example, Public Defender Office. Diversion/re-entry. Example, Credible Messenger Program. Counseling/therapy. Example, Urban Youth Mental Health Clinic. Job, Housing, Education. Example, Re-entry Youth Jobs Program. Emergency Hotline. Example, 988 Suicide and Crisis Line. Part 5, Guest Speaker or Testimonial Video. Option A, Guest Speaker. Invite a former participant, counselor, or outreach worker from a local program to speak briefly about their work, how the program helped them or others, what they would say to someone thinking about using support. Option B, Testimonial Video. Play a video of someone sharing how a diversion or therapy program changed their direction. Debrief discussion. What gave them the courage to ask for help? What made their success possible? Part 6, Reflection and Commitment Statement. Journal prompt. What's one area of my life where I need outside help? What's holding me back from reaching out, and how can I push through it? Exit ticket. One resource I didn't know about before today was. I will contact or learn more about it by. Final takeaway. Nobody makes it alone. The strongest move is knowing when to lean on the right support. Planning the break, building safe, smart paths out of gang life. Learning objectives. By the end of this session, participants will understand the importance of safety planning when leaving gang or street life. Identify common risks and barriers that can arise when trying to exit. Learn practical tools to reduce risk, avoid retaliation, and stay protected. Create a personalized safety and support strategy. Build confidence in seeking help and maintaining boundaries during the transition. Part 1, Opening Discussion, Why Exiting is Hard. Prompt. What are some reasons people don't or can't leave gang life, even when they want to? Facilitator writes answers on board. Fear of retaliation. No money or housing. Peer pressure or threats. No plan or support. Emotional loyalty/trauma bonding. Fear of being alone. Goal, validate the difficulty while also empowering change. Part 2, What barriers make it risky to leave? Teach. Common exit barriers. Emotional, guilt, fear of judgment, losing identity. Social, peer pressure, threats, lack of safe space. Economic, no job, no shelter, criminal record. Practical, lack of ID, transportation, support. Group discussion. Which of these barriers feel most real to you, or to someone you know? Part 3, Safety Planning, What it is and how it works. Teach. What is a safety plan? A personalized, step-by-step strategy to protect yourself during and after exiting risky environments. Key parts of a safety plan. Safe people to contact, family, mentors, hotline. Safe spaces to go, community centers, shelters, out-of-area family. What to say if pressured or threatened. Exit timeline, immediate versus gradual. Emergency backup plan. Real-life tips. Don't announce your exit to everyone. Let 1 to 2 trusted people know your plan. Avoid old hangouts and phone numbers. Part 4, Build your personal safety plan. Activity. Distribute my exit safety plan worksheet. Sections include area example/to complete. People I trust to support me. Name, contact info. Places I can go if unsafe. Relatives' house, program center, etc. Red flags to watch for. Threats, being followed, strange messages. My plan to distance gradually. Stop contact, change number, reduce visits. Emergency backup plan. Shelter, hotline, trusted adult. Support resources to contact. Local re-entry, counseling, mentors. Part 5, Resources, Support and Roleplay. Resources. Share a local or national safety contact sheet. Violence interrupters. Domestic violence hotlines. Gang exit/re-entry programs. Youth emergency shelters. Legal or police non-emergency support. Role-play scenarios. What would you say if someone threatened you for leaving? How do you shut down a conversation without escalating it? What if you feel alone after cutting ties? Facilitator provides examples of calm, strategic responses. Talk your way out, practicing the words that set you free. Learning objectives. By the end of this session, participants will build confidence and communication skills needed to talk about leaving a gang. Understand the risks and emotional tension that come with exit conversations. Practice realistic role-play scenarios to respond to pressure, threats, guilt, or manipulation. Learn strategies to de-escalate conflict and protect their safety while staying firm. Reflect on their own exit language and personal messaging. Part 1, Introduction, The Power of the Conversation. Discussion prompt. What's the hardest part about telling someone you're leaving gang life? Answers may include fear of being judged, fear of retaliation, fear of looking soft or fake, not knowing how to start the conversation, not wanting to hurt someone or be disloyal. Message. Talking about leaving is one of the riskiest and most powerful acts of courage. Part 2, Who will you need to talk to? Activity. Ask participants to create a conversation circle with these categories. Fellow gang members or OGs. Friends still involved in the streets. Family members. Mentors or support workers. Younger peers they may influence. Ask. Which of these conversations do you fear the most? Which one do you want to get right? Highlight, each of these conversations requires different tones, different risks, and different outcomes. Part 3, Tools for Tough Conversations. Teach. 5 conversation strategies when leaving gangs. Be clear, not emotional. I'm moving in a different direction. It's not about disrespect. Repeat your purpose. I want peace. I want something better for my life/family. Use boundaries. I'm not asking permission, I'm telling you where I stand. De-escalate. I'm not here to cause problems. I'm here to grow. Exit the conversation if it turns. We can talk again when things cool down. I respect you, but I'm out. Part 4, Role-play scenarios, practice and coach. Activity instructions. Break participants into pairs or small groups. Give each group one role-play scenario and one person to be the leaver, the others the responders. Rotate roles so each person plays both sides. Sample scenarios. Telling a close friend in the gang you're leaving. Being pressured by an OG to stay involved. Trying to explain your decision to a younger gang member who looks up to you. Telling a family member who's worried but doesn't trust your change. Calling a support worker or counselor to ask for help exiting. Your Lifeline Network, discovering the help that's out there. Learning objectives. By the end of this session, participants will be introduced to local and national support systems available to them. Learn how to access help for housing, jobs, legal aid, mental health, education, and re-entry. Understand the types of organizations and what services they offer. Build confidence in asking for help and starting contact. Create a personalized resource plan to use now or in the future. Part 1, Icebreaker, what help do you wish you had? Activity. Write on a board. What kinds of support do people need when leaving street life? Possible answers. A place to sleep. A mentor. A lawyer. Someone to believe in them. A job. Food. ID or documents. A safe space. Someone to talk to. Part 2, Why knowing your resources can save your life. Teach. Many youth or returning citizens don't reach out because they don't know what's out there. They assume they won't qualify. They don't trust systems or programs. They're afraid of being judged. Prompt discussion. What stopped you, or someone you know, from asking for help before? Core message. You don't need to do it alone. Knowing where to go is a smart survival move. Part 3, Explore the local and national resource guide. Distribute. Give each participant a printed or digital support resource guide. Sections include housing and emergency shelter, local youth shelters, transitional housing, emergency hotlines, employment and education, local job placement programs, GED/skills training, apprenticeship pipelines, resume workshops, legal aid, public defender offices, youth rights organizations, record expungement help, mental health and counseling, free or low-cost therapists, trauma and grief support groups, crisis hotlines, 988, youth-specific lines, mentorship and community, credible messengers, street outreach teams, faith-based youth services, re-entry programs. Part 4, Build your personal support plan. IPOV Help I Need Organization Contact Info Plan to reach out, how/when. Housing. Safe place after leaving. XYZ Shelter. 555-1234. Call Monday morning. Mental health. I need someone to talk to. Youth Wellness Center. 555-9876. Visit after class Thursday. Legal. Expungement for charges. Legal Aid Project. 555-3333. Part 5, Resource Fair or Simulation Calls. Option A, Mock Call Roleplay. Participants pair up. One pretends to be a support worker. The other is the caller. Practice saying, "Hi, I'm trying to make a change. I want help with finding a job/housing/legal aid. What steps do I need to take to join your program?" Facilitator rotates, giving suggestions and affirming confidence. Option B, Resource Fair. Set up tables with info about local groups or stations with flyers, posters, QR codes. Let students rotate and learn. Part 6, Reflection and Exit Ticket. Journal Prompt. What resource from today surprised me the most? What's one call or step I can take this week to move forward? Exit Ticket. One support resource I will contact is. I'll do it by because. Final takeaway. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to know where to start, and who's already waiting to help. Module 5. Positive Identity, Brotherhood/Sisterhood through Alternatives. Positive Identity, Brotherhood/Sisterhood through Alternatives. Learning Objectives. By the end of this session, participants will be able to define mass incarceration in the U.S. and understand how it developed. Recognize how mass incarceration disproportionately affects communities of color and low-income youth. Explore the impact of incarceration on identity, family, and community unity. Connect with the idea that positive identity and authentic brotherhood/sisterhood offer powerful alternatives to systems of punishment. Reflect on how to rewrite your story with pride, strength, and purpose, without violence or incarceration. Part 1, Icebreaker, Identity Chain. Activity. Go around in a circle, each person says a word that describes a positive part of their identity, e.g., strong, loyal, creative, survivor, protector. As each person adds a word, it forms a collective identity chain. Then ask, what do all these words say about who we really are? Are we more than what the system tries to label us? Takeaway, you are more than a statistic. Your identity is powerful and unique. Part 2, What is mass incarceration? Mini lesson plus video/slides. Key points. US has 5% of the world's population but nearly 25% of the world's prisoners. Over 2 million people are currently incarcerated in the US. Mass incarceration grew rapidly starting in the 1980s due to the war on drugs, mandatory minimum sentencing, policing in communities of color. Part 3, How Mass Incarceration Affects Us. Discussion prompt. How has incarceration impacted you, your family, or your neighborhood? Small group or pair activity. Use an impact mapping worksheet with 3 circles. Personal, trauma, lost time, mental health. Family, separation, lost income, broken trust. Community, less role models, more fear, less opportunity. Part 4, Redefining Brotherhood and Sisterhood. Mini workshop. What does real brotherhood or sisterhood look like outside of gang life? Draw 2 columns. Toxic loyalty, fake brotherhood, positive brotherhood/sisterhood. Risks your life. Protects your future. Encourages violence. Encourages growth. Is conditional. Is unconditional. Shames you for walking away. Supports your change. Module 6. Review and Commitment. Locked down, locked out, understanding mass incarceration and committing to change. Learning objectives. By the end of this session, participants will understand what mass incarceration is and how it developed. Explore how it affects individuals, families, and communities, especially youth and marginalized groups. Recognize the racial and economic disparities within the system. Reflect on how incarceration connects to choices, environment, and identity. Commit to a personal action plan to avoid the pipeline and inspire others. Part 1, Intro and Icebreaker. What do you know? Discussion prompt. When you hear the word prison or incarceration, what comes to mind? Facilitator writes words or phrases on a board/chart. Punishment. Justice. Danger. Broken system. Racism. Cycle. Hopeless. Then ask. Do you think it's only about crime, or could there be something bigger going on? Objective. Break the stereotype of incarceration as simply deserve punishment and spark curiosity about systemic patterns. Part 2, Mini Lesson. What is mass incarceration? Key definitions. Incarceration equals being held in jail or prison. Mass incarceration equals the explosive growth of the U.S. prison population since the 1970s, affecting millions disproportionately. Teach the timeline. 1970s, war on drugs. 1980s, 90s, tough on crime laws, 3 strikes, mandatory minimums. Racial profiling and over-policing in Black, Latino, and poor communities. School-to-prison pipeline. Privatization of prisons equals profit motive. Statistics to highlight. The U.S. has 5% of the world's population but nearly 25% of its prisoners. Black Americans are incarcerated at 5x the rate of white Americans. Youth of color face harsher punishment in school and legal systems. Over 2 million people currently incarcerated in the U.S. Part 3, Group Discussion and Media Review. Activity, Behind the Numbers. Break into small groups. Each group receives a short case study or news excerpt, a data visualization or infographic, a real-life story of a formerly incarcerated youth or family. Prompts to discuss. What does this show about how incarceration affects lives? What surprised you or made you angry? Could this happen to you or someone you know? Groups present their findings. Main point, mass incarceration isn't just about bad choices, it's often about broken systems. Part 4, Reflection Activity, Where could this lead me? Personal journaling or mind mapping. If I followed certain paths I've seen around me, where might I end up? If I took another path, what would that look like? Have participants draw a forked path or future timeline. Path A, staying in destructive cycles, peer pressure, gangs, violence, retaliation. Path B, choosing alternatives, education, leadership, creativity, mentorship. Optional prompts. What pressures pull people toward the justice system? What choices or people protect you from that? What system changes do you think would help? Part 5, Commitment Planning. Distribute, My Commitment to Stay Free worksheet. Sections include what I've learned about mass incarceration today, what I want to avoid or change in my life/community, my strengths I'll use to stay out of the system, who I'll lean on when I feel pressure, one action I will take this week to build my freedom path, e.g., join a program, avoid a negative situation, mentor someone else. Optional, turn this into a commitment wall or journal entry. This is about ownership and action, not just learning. Part 6, Wrap-up and Affirmations. Group sharing. One thing I learned today is, one way I'll keep my future out of the system is. Group affirmation, say aloud or write as a pledge. I am not a statistic. I am not a number. I am my choices. I am my future. I will not let the system define me. Optional, distribute quote cards, certificates of commitment, or stickers as reminders of the learning and commitment. Final takeaway message. Mass incarceration traps millions, but you have the power to break the cycle, for yourself and others.